Let us now move on to a topic called Java Beans. Java Beans is a component architecture of Java. This is a client-side component. When I say client-side component, it means that it's a local component. It has nothing to do with just running on a client as such. Even if it is on the server-side program itself will access that object, but it acts as a local object. So this is a component architecture of Java which allows you to define components. We said swings are all Java Bean components. So that was an example of a Java Bean. Java Bean is also nothing but a class, Java class. So how is it different from any other normal Java class? Java Bean classes follow certain rules or certain procedures. All Java Bean classes must implement serializable interface because Java Bean is a component. A component will be used in some application, in some class by an application builder. When an application uses a Java Bean component as an object, and if suppose you were to serialize an object of a class which is using this component object as an instance member, in return this component also has to be serialized. Otherwise they get exception. So therefore all Java Bean components must be serializable. That's rule number 1. Java Bean components will have a setter-getter methods for all its properties. You might even handle events for your components. So in that case you will have registration, deregistration methods for the events and the event handler methods. So a Java Bean is a reusable, interoperable software component that can be visually manipulated in a builder tool. If you were to place your component into a builder tool, your builder tool would be able to create an instance of your component when you drag and drop a component and be able to display all the properties of the component in the property sheet. The Java Bean API makes it possible to write component software in the Java programming language. You have a java.beans package which you might require to use depending on what are all the classes that you want to use while writing your Java Bean. Now if it's a very simple Java Bean with just properties and getter setter methods, you might not even make use of your beans package. A component is a group of classes. What is a component? Now let's take a look at JButton for example. It's a component, but it's just not the JButton class which is the component. In order to give you that JButton, that's a swing button, there are a whole lot of classes involved to build this component. So one component is one single functionality, but it consists of whole lot of classes, multiple classes to give you that single functionality and single component. So a component is group of classes that interact with each other to fulfill a single purpose. The component specializes in that single purpose. An application developer uses different beans in his application. Now using a Java Bean, you can build two types of components. You can build a GUI based component or a non-GUI based component. If you want to build a GUI based component, you will build the component deriving from the component class. A non-GUI based component does not derive from any of the component classes. A Java Bean should ideally support the following. So when you say you're writing a Java Bean class, they should ideally have the following contents. They should have properties. For the properties, you will have the accessor methods, the getter setter methods. You might have event handling. So for events, you will have methods. Events are used to communicate between components. So if you want to communicate between two beans, it is through events. For example, when you click at the button, you want to display something in the text field. So communication between a button and a text field is via an event. Persistence means, as we know, serialization. Your beans should be able to store its state, which means they should implement serializable interface. Upon a bean, a builder tool should be able to make a reflection and be able to create an object of your component. If I were to place a component into a builder tool, and using the builder tool, if you were to drag and drop the component into a design area, the builder tool should be able to create an instance of your bean and be able to display the properties of the bean via reflection. So introspection is nothing but reflection using which the builder tool can display all the events and properties of a component. Since for a Java bean, a builder tool, if it has to be able to create an instance for any Java bean component that you write, you must provide a public default constructor. So through the reflection API, the instance can be created using the new instance method of class. Customization. Using customization, bean customization, you can specify what properties and what methods you want to expose for the runtime environment. So only such properties will be displayed in the property sheet. Now let's take a look at a brief on reflection API. We have already covered reflection API. The reflection API helps us in finding out the contents of the class. So you can find out what are the constructors, methods and variables defined in the class, and you can find out their details in return. So when you place a component into a builder tool and you drag and drop, how is it that the container, that's a builder tool, be able to display all the properties of that component and the events for that component? Because the builder tool does a reflection on your component. After doing the reflection, it finds out what properties and events are available. Accordingly, it displays into a property sheet. Beans have properties, and you're going to provide accessor methods for these properties. Of course, it's not only the accessor methods and event-based methods that are there in the bean class, but also other methods are also written in the bean class to build the functionality of the component. Now let's talk about the properties. There are 4 different types of properties. Now just before we get to the 4 different types of properties, when you declare a property, how do you define a accessor method for the property is what we are going to look at now. For example, let's say we have an employee bean which has a property name. For this name property, you define the accessor methods, set method and a get method for the name property. If suppose your variable name is NOMME, your set and get method names can be anything. There's nothing saying that your variable name, which is a property also, right, and the setter getter method for that particular variable should be matching. It can be 2 different things. Your variable name can be different, your setter getter name can be different. But the property that we are talking about that will be exposed in the property sheet through the builder tool, or in general anywhere if you want to through your program,